Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Nitya Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitya Gaura Haribo. Jai Shri Radha Govardhana Krishna Balaram Nodhya Shri Goni Chai Ki Srila Prabhupada Ki Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jai Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 15, Text 27 to 29. Chashmin Natityamanaya Sat. Chashmin Natityamanaya Sadashanjamana. Might be the one. It's all right. Just hold it a bit away. Oh, you try another one. Tashmin adityamanaya sada sanjamana laksha samana vayava atha saptamayam evo acha shatta gitta gado paratya Keyura kanda lakrita kitan kavishu Tashmin aditya manaya sadashatchamana Kaksha samana vayashu atasaptamayam Devava chakshat Gitta gado paratya Keyura kanda lakita vatanka vishu Tashmin aditya manaya sadashanjamana Kaksha samana vayashavata Tamayam Ivava chakshatta gitta gado payatya Keyura kanda lakrita vatanka vishu Someone else. Tashmin aditya manaya sadashatchamana Yaksha samana vayavata sabattamayam Ivava chakshatta gitta gado paratya Keyura kanda lakita vatanka sishu Yashmin atitya manaya sadasham jamana Kaksha samana vayashavata saptayam Ivava chakshatta gitta gado paratya Keyura kanda lakrita vatanka vishu Ladies Yashmin aditya manaya sadashatchamana Kaksha samana vayashvata sapatyam Iva achatchatta gitta gado payatya Keyura kandala kitta vitaka veshu Tashmin in that Vaikuntha, Atitya, after passing through Munaya, the great sages, Sat, 6, Asajamana, without being much attracted, Kakshaha, walls, Samana, equal, Vayashu, age, Ata, thereafter, Saptamayam, at the 7th gate, Devo, to Vaikuntha doorman, Akakshata, saw, Gritta, carrying, Gadu, maces, Para Aradhya, most valuable, Keyura, bracelets, Kundala, earrings, Kirita, helmets, Vitaka, beautiful, Veshu, garments. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. After passing through the 6 entrances of Vaikuntha Puri, the Lord's residence, without feeling astonishment at all the decorations, they saw at the 7th gate 2 shining beings of the same age, armed with maces and adorned with most valuable jewelry, earrings, diamonds, helmets, garments. Purport: the sages were so eager to see the Lord within Vaikuntha Puri that they did not care to see the transcendental decorations of the 6 gates which they passed by one after another. But at the 7th door they found 2 doormen of the same age. The significance of the doormans being the same age is that in the Vaikuntha planets there is no old age. So one cannot distinguish who is older than whom. The inhabitants of Vaikuntha are decorated like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, with Sakya, Chakra, Gada and Padma, conch, wheel, club and lotus. To read the next verse. The 2 doormen were garlanded with fresh flowers, which attracted intoxicated bees, and which were placed around their necks and between their 4 blue arms. From their arched eyebrows, discontented nostrils, and reddish eyes, they appeared somewhat agitated. Their garlands attracted swarms of bees because they were garlands of fresh flowers. In the Vaikuntha world, everything is fresh, new, and transcendental. The inhabitants of Vaikuntha have bodies of bluish colour and 4 hands like Narayan. 29. The great sages, headed by Sanak, had opened doors everywhere. They had no idea of ours and theirs. With open minds, they entered the 7th door out of their own will, just as they had passed through the 6 other doors, which were made of gold and diamonds. The great sages, namely Sanak, Sanat, Sananda, and Sanat Kumar, although very old in years, maintained themselves eternally as small children. They were not at all duplicitous, and they entered the doors exactly like little children enter palace places without any idea of what it is to trespass. That is child's nature. A child can enter any place and no one checks him. Indeed, a child is generally welcome in his attempts to go places. But if it so happens that a child is checked from entering a door, he naturally becomes very sorry and angry. That is the nature of a child. In this case, the same thing happened. The childlike saintly personalities entered all the 6 doors of the palace, and no one checked them. Therefore they attempted to enter the 7th door, were forbidden by the doorman, who checked them with their sticks. They naturally became very angry and sorrowful. An ordinary child would cry, but because these were not ordinary children, they immediately made preparations to punish the doorman, for the doorman had committed a great offence. Even to this day, the saintly person is never checked from entering anyone's door in India. Yes. This is a very interesting chapter of the Bhagavatam. Now, if we recount, it was Diti and Kashyapa. They procreated untimely, and the result was 2 demons have taken birth in a Diti's womb. And by the force of the pregnancy and the presence of these incredibly powerful demons, the sun and the moon were impaired, and the whole universe was plunged into darkness. So the demigods were very disturbed, and they approached Lord Brahma, who was the king of the demigods. And Lord Brahma, he began to explain the reason why these two demons have taken birth in the womb of these powerful demons, which were going to tyrannize the universe, had taken birth in Duti's womb. He started explaining the whole history of this event, which was soon to take place. And because ultimately, he explained that this is all the Lord's arrangement for this event to take place. So, at the beginning of creation, these little four Kumaras, even though they appeared as just 5-year-old little boys, they were actually very, very old. Very old. I mean, they appeared at the beginning of creation. They were the 4 sons of Brahma who were born from his mind. And they appeared, this current day of Lord Brahma is something like 2 billion years. So this is 2 billion years ago. According to, mainstream physical anthropologists, they discuss amongst themselves, and they believe that 6 million years ago, certain creatures, they split away from the African apes and became like a kind of a certain type of primitive man who evolved into a tool maker, a fire maker. And they believe that, intelligent humans or modern humans appeared on the scene about 100,000 years ago. Of course, if you ask them to prove it, they can't prove it. And of course, even artifacts and certain people that study fossils and things like that have proven that human beings are much older than 100,000 years, intelligent human beings. But according to our Vedic texts, the most intelligent person in this universe, Lord Brahma, who was fully enlightened and within the heart by the Supreme Lord himself and empowered to engineer the creation of this universe. He appeared, like we said, 2 billion years ago. And he, in turn, he created many saintly, intelligent personalities who became the original progenitors of our original human race. So this Vedic understanding, it diffuses the modern scientific theory. So these 4 sons of Brahma, the Kumaras, they were requested by their father to marry and procreate. However, they refused. They took vows of celibacy. They underwent severe austerities to realize the absolute truth. And they just to initiate their views and their vows, they just remained as, like, by their mystic power, they remained as these just 5-year-old boys. And they used to just walk around naked, just completely transcendental personalities. And of course, these 4 Kumaras are not normal people. They're actually empowered incarnations of the Supreme Lord. And actually they became leaders of one of our 4 main sampradayas. we have our Gaudiya Madhava Sampradaya, which we're a part of. One Sampradaya came from the Kumaras, one came from Lord Brahma, one came from who was it? There's a Sri Sampradaya, it came from Lakshmi, right? And then there's one more. Huh? Shiva, yeah. Is it Shiva? Yeah, okay. So, these incarnations, it is said that just as the waves of the ocean, if you go down to the ocean, just watch the waves coming in. They just keep coming in, right? They're uncountable. So similarly, just like you can't count the waves, you can't even begin to try and count the different incarnations of the Lord. They're just innumerable. They're just coming and going. They descend from the spiritual world. They display certain powers needed for their particular mission at the particular time. So as such, there's just unlimited categories of incarnations who display various opulences. We have like Lord Ramachandra and Dhanvantari. They displayed the Lord's fame. Then we got Balaram, Vamana, Mohini Murti. They displayed the Lord's beauty. We've got Naranarayan Rishi. We read about Naranarayan who lived way up and high in the Himalayas. They displayed the Lord's renunciation. And we have Dattatreya and Matsya, Kapila, and these four Kumaras. They actually displayed the Lord's transcendental knowledge. And of course, because Krishna is the original fountainhead of all these incarnations, all these excellences and features and that they have in these different incarnations, Krishna, he possesses them all. He has everything. He has unlimited beauty, fame, renunciation, transcendental knowledge, power. So it's interesting because although these Kumaras had heard about the Lord's transcendental form from their father, Lord Brahma, they only the impersonal feature, the Brahman feature, which is said to be like the effulgence of the Lord, was actually revealed to them at this time. But because they were sincerely searching for the Lord, by the Lord's mercy, they were finally able to get the Lord's darshan and see the Lord face to face. And when they saw that form of the Lord, we read this in the future, they were just overwhelmed. You can imagine seeing the Lord face to face. It is said that every feature of the Lord's transcendental form is likened to a tidal wave of luscious splendor that just inundates the devotee's senses and just drenches their heart with unlimited satisfaction. And of course, not only did they see the Lord, but when they smelt the aroma of the tulsi leaves, you'll see when we dress the deities every day, we get a little bit of sandalwood paste and we dip a tulsi leaf into the sandalwood paste and we place it on the Lord's lotus feet. And so when these Kumaras, when they smelt the aroma of those tulsi leaves, which were coming from the Lord's lotus toes, they just experienced this profound change of consciousness. From Brahman realization, they fully came into the realization that we are eternal loving servants of the Supreme Lord. This is the highest understanding. To understand our eternal constitutional position as eternal loving servants of the Supreme Lord. That's why it's so nice when you become a devotee, Everyone out there in the world is trying to, they say the world is like a stage. And everyone's like an actor. out there on the stage, on the worldly stage, portraying their roles. They try and create a certain character for themselves. They dress a certain way, they act a certain way, they speak a certain way. They create this image of themselves right out there, completely absorbed in this bodily conception of life. So, and it's and people are always in anxiety due to this. So when you actually become a devotee, you give up pretending to be something you're not, which is a product of this material world, to just be a humble servant of Krishna, which is what you really are. It's your real self. My mother used to tell me, now just be yourself, Don't try and be anyone else, just be yourself. But trying to be yourself is not as easy as it sounds. Judith, we read about that in the Bhagavad Gita, tens of thousands of lifetimes in this material world. All this material contamination and conditioning and all this illusion, and we don't know who we are. In essence, we don't know. But when you actually come to Krishna consciousness and realize that this is what I am, I'm an eternal loving servant of Krishna, it's such a relief. Such a nice experience. Yes. So these Kumaras, by their mystic power, they virtually floated up to Vaikuntha. They passed through the 6 gates of Vaikuntha. But as they passed through the gates, they were completely, it said that when they entered in Vaikuntha, they were enthralled by the spiritual world. No one really knows about the kingdom of God. There's nothing in the Bible or other scriptures. It's only in our Vedic literatures do we get detailed descriptions of the spiritual world and what goes on there. This incredible festival of joy. It's just an incredible, amazing place. So as they passed through, they were enthralled in this place where the Lord eternally resides in his 4-armed, beautiful Narayan form, and all the living entities, they have these spiritual bodies like the Lord, not subject to birth, death, old age and disease. Just imagine being in a place where you never grow old. We're reading about that in that verse. No one wants to grow old, It's like, it's just a reality. The thing is, the reality is, time is called Chandra Vega. It's moving so fast. But because we're in illusion, we think time is moving very slowly, but time is moving so quickly. Prabhupada explained that the first 20 years of your life you spend growing up, getting your education. Most people only live to 80 years is the average age in the West. This first 20 years you spend growing up, and then in the last 20 years of your life you're winding down, you're growing old, getting all the aches and pains and bodily problems. So you're only left with 40 good years. And you spend half that sleeping. So you only got 20 good years. And it just goes like that. If you try and reflect on where the last 10 years, just think about the last 10 years and how quickly it went. It just went like that. So the reality is, our life is just a flash in the eternal time scale. The reality is, as we're all sitting here, in a few days, we're all going to be sitting here, old people. Ladies don't like to hear that, because no one wants to go. In the spiritual world, yes, time is no past and there's no future. everything's just existing in the present. Can you imagine living in a place like that? Transcendental time, which is there to serve the Lord. And of course, the inhabitants, they would have seen all the inhabitants flying around in these incredible airplanes. They've got these airplanes in the spiritual world that are made of gold and emeralds and different types of gemstones. And they're all just flying around in these airplanes with their consorts, singing the Lord's glories. And everyone is just extremely beautiful, like millions of times more beautiful than the most beautiful movie stars. And they're all, and everyone's enjoying these incredible opulences. Like people, they work hard all their life just to get their house, just to try and enjoy a little bit of material comfort. In the spiritual world, no one's working. No one's struggling hard just to get a few bit of material comfort. People are just enjoying these royal opulences. And everyone is just completely happy and joyful. Vaikuntha means a place of no anxieties. People that look at this modern world have seen that although material conditions have become better and better than the old days, people are becoming more and more unhappy. People that study this world and study humanity have concluded that there's an epidemic of unhappiness in the world. Especially, they say, in Europe, America, depression. The World Health Organization have issued this statement that depression or unhappiness will be the biggest disease next to heart disease in the mid-2020s. There's millions of people going on antidepressant drugs, people getting full on into intoxication, people, just so many confused, frustrated people turning to drugs, alcohol, even suicide. It's a big problem in the world, this depression, unhappiness, But in the Vaikuntha, you don't see that. Everyone's just completely ecstatic and happy and joyful at every moment. There's no unhappiness, no anxieties. And there's these forests of desire trees. These desire trees, whatever you want, you can go to a desire tree and the desire tree will fulfill your desire, whatever you want. And there's just fields. There's just fruits and flowers everywhere. And it's not like here in winter where all the garland makers are struggling to find flowers because the flowers don't come out in winter. But in Vaikuntha, the flowers and the fruits are just blossoming and everywhere, continually, all year round, all seasons round. And also, they would have noticed that every living entity in the spiritual world, like here, a tree has very little consciousness, or if you hold a book in front of the panting face of a dog or a squirrel, or a bird, they're not interested. But in the spiritual, because they don't have such a high level of consciousness, they don't have a higher rationality and intelligence like us humans. But in the spiritual world, every living entity is conscious. It's described in future verses that even the bees, little bees, are singing the glories of the Lord. And the birds, they stop their own singing just to hear the glories of the Lord sung by the bees. And even the creepers, the plants, are fully conscious. They're also singing the glories of the Lord. Imagine that. They're all fully conscious, fully cognizant living entities, the creepers, the birds, the flowers, the trees, even the clouds. And of course there's millions of these goddesses of fortune they're actually wives of pure devotees. Can you turn that down a bit? They're wives of pure devotees. They're just perpetually, lovingly serving the Lord, eager to achieve His grace. So we read that the Kumaras got to the 7th gate and suddenly met these very beautiful 4-armed doorkeepers who were carrying the wheel, the conch, the club, the lotus in their hands, decorated with incredible ornaments and jewels like the Lord Himself. So it appears from this verse that they passed through 6 gates. And there was doorkeepers on those other 6 gates, but they just let them go through. But when they got to the 7th gate, they didn't get through. The doorkeepers stopped them. You know, these doorkeepers, they're like the Lord's security guards. You know, and only if you're a very highly advanced, pure devotee, were you allowed to enter into the spiritual world. So by the Lord's arrangement, they did not realize that these 4 little 5-year-old naked Kumaras were actually very advanced devotees. Of course, the Kumaras, when they were stopped, at first they were surprised, but then they felt very sorrowful. Why did they feel sorrowful? Because they had this incredible, great eagerness to see the Lord. So they were feeling very sorrowful, but suddenly due to frustration of not being able to see the Lord, it is said their eyes became red with anger. You know, they thought, we do not deserve this type of treatment. And so they started discussing amongst themselves, you know, that how are these 2 persons living in Vaikuntha? Maybe they're imposters. Therefore, they suspect others to be like themselves. That's why they've stopped us. They've created disharmony in a place where complete harmony prevails, where everyone is just loving the Lord, who is the center, and people just love each other and everyone. Therefore, because they're creating this disharmony, they shouldn't be living here. They should be sent back to the material world, where this harmony prevails, and they're decided, we're going to curse them. We're going to curse them to go to the material world. Of course, as Vaishnavas, the Kumaras should not have cursed them. And after this regretting, this is all part, because it was all part of the Lord's plan that induced them from within their heart to curse them. But they shouldn't have cursed them. And after this incident, they regretted cursing the devotees of the Lord, and they prayed for forgiveness. They prayed that although they might go to a hellish life for cursing devotees, they might not forget the service of the Lord. So, of course, the 4 Kumaras, you know, they should have, these doorkeepers should have paid proper respect. You know, proper respect comes from humility. You know, in our bhakti culture, the jewel of humility is listed as the first quality, which, if developed, is very, very favorable for spiritual advancement. This jewel of humility is said to be the emblem of a sincerely surrendered bhakti yogi. You know, a genuine Vaishnava devotee of the Lord is naturally very humble. And humility is many things, and it manifests in our ability to respect other living entities, especially Vaishnavas. A humble person will give respect to everyone, whereas a proud, puffed up person will find it difficult to respect anyone, but rather they will demand respect from everyone for themselves. This is how the nature of materially conditioned souls. And of course, unless we have genuine respect for senior devotees, we will not be inspired to inquire from them, to take shelter of them, to receive knowledge from them. So this is, we see that this Bhakti Yoga philosophy, it gives us a whole science of how to develop this equality, to see everyone kind of equally. It said in Bhagavad Gita, it tells us that real knowledge begins when we understand who am I, who is the Supreme Lord, what is my relationship with Him. By understanding these things, we come to understand that every living entity has an eternal spiritual identity beyond the body and mind. Yes. That every living entity is an infinitesimal part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, has an eternal loving relationship with the Supreme Lord, and is very dear to the Supreme Lord. So, in the eyes of the Supreme Lord, everyone is equal. And also in the eyes of one who is truly learned, everyone is equal. Everyone is respected on the worldly plane, and everyone is respected on the spiritual platform as an eternal loving servant of the Supreme Lord. And this offering of respect includes all living entities. This is not just humans, but animals, ants, trees, birds. What to say of Krishna's dear devotees? And even in the Bhagavad Gita, it also says that even if a devotee has some shortcomings, or is not perfect or of ideal behavior, or even if a devotee falls down from the ideal path, if they are established properly in Krishna consciousness, following the process, they should be properly respected and seen as saintly. Because it is said that even if someone commits the most abominable activity, if he's properly situated in Krishna consciousness, the Lord within his heart will purify him of that activity and re-establish him on the path of pure devotional service. So everyone, even the devotee who has some shortcomings or is not coming up to the proper standard, they should be respected. And the general tendency is that we tend to disrespect a person as soon as we discover their shortcomings. We use this fact to evaluate who is superior, who is inferior, and thus sometimes we may even try to establish our superiority by showing disrespect or putting people down, seeing their shortcomings. So the very foundation of spiritual culture is respect. Where we see out there in the world, the culture of sense gratification always brings along a culture of disrespect. Why is this? Because sense gratification, people who believe that the whole goal of life is simply to enjoy this body, it means that they manipulate this world and others for their gross and subtle sense gratification and their selfish satisfaction. And we can also observe how in the age of Kali, the level of respect is just incredibly decreasing rapidly with every decade. How disrespect is becoming more and more prominent, especially amongst the younger generation. I mean, even when I was just in India, I'm standing there at the sweet shop in Vrindavan, and I'm just standing there in line, right? And these Indians, these puffed up Indian kind of people, they just more or less bulge out of the way and just push in front of you, right? It's a common thing. They just push in the line right in front of you. Well, it's even I see that in Calcutta at the station there, Krishna Nagar. No, it's not Krishna Nagar. What's that main station in? Huh? Huh? No, it's the other one, not Hara. Yeah. They got like all these platforms, like 10 platforms there, and you don't know which platform the train's going to leave from until it comes up on the thing, on the computer screen, 5 minutes before the train's going to leave. So all the people are waiting there, hundreds of people are waiting there, looking at the thing. And as soon as it comes up, they're all charging down to get a seat on the train, and they're just bop, knocking over old ladies and kids and just pushing people out of the way. It's a modern day culture, no respect. I mean, generally, even if you're dressed in saffron or something like that, or brahmachari, people offer respect. But these Indians just practically knocking you out of the way to beat you in the line, right? Even 50 years ago, it seemed in various countries over the world, people behaved more cultured, with more higher values and morals in life. So, it's also in any intimate relationship we have with others has to be based on deep respect. If this foundation is not there, if you become too over-familiar with people, it can spoil any relationship. Even Prabhupada mentions, even householders, husband and wife, they shouldn't be just with each other, just living in each other's pockets day in, day out. That over-familiarity, it's not good, it's not healthy, I mean, they should be out doing service or out working, and then, at certain times of the day they meet and they associate. Over-familiarity means that, you begin to treat each other cheaply and you take each other for granted. Even the scriptures warn us, especially this applies in relationship to the spiritual master, that in order to avoid accidentally committing offences to one's guru, one should be very careful not to become too over-familiar, taking him for granted. That for one's own good, one should maintain a fearful attitude and always endeavour to show the highest respect in the spiritual master's presence. It means one shouldn't simply see one's guru from a materialistic point of view. He should not be treated as an ordinary man, even if he sometimes behaves like a normal man. That we should try and focus on the internal features of the spiritual master. How he is engaged in devotional service, how he is selflessly trying to spread Lord Chaitanya's mission, how he is very dear to Krishna, how he's specifically empowered by Krishna to deliver us. Influenced by Maya, sometimes even a foolish disciple becomes impudent and dares to criticize the activities of the spiritual master, try to instruct him against his wish. And there was even devotees in Prabhupada's time who committed offences against Prabhupada, and they actually didn't remain in Krishna consciousness. This type of offence is highly detrimental to one's spiritual progress. Even in the spiritual culture, amongst devotees, we address our Guru as Guru Maharaj, and devotees we address as Prabhu or Mataji, or we simply add Prabhu or Mataji to their name. It's a sign of respect. It's part of our Vaishnava culture. Yes. And even our parents, we should even consider them our seniors and offer respect to them, even if they don't practice Krishna consciousness. They've served us. They served us for so many years, didn't they? Our mother and our father. They cared for us. So we have to show respect for them, If they try and give us incorrect instructions, we shouldn't try and argue with them or challenge them or just try and cut them down. We should keep a cool head and just humbly and gently try to reason with them. Just maintain respect for them, And even we should also respect non-devotees. We cannot effectively preach to conditioned souls unless we have respect for people. We shouldn't think that, these people are just out of it, they're demons, they're demoniac, we're so superior, and just not have proper respect. We should, to really genuinely care for their spiritual well-being and encourage them in their spiritual life and instruct them, we have to have respect for people. And even when people come to the temple, we should always treat them nicely and respectfully. So, we see people of the modern world, they're becoming so frustrated in society, governed by this disrespect and over-familiarity and envy. Therefore, we're offering in Krishna consciousness a cultured way of life based on mutual respect and affectionate care for each other. Yes, respect, very important. And so we're learning these different. We can take different lessons from these verses. How these doorkeepers, they should have shown proper respect to the Vaishnava devotees. Does anyone have any questions I'd like to ask them? Oh yeah. Just say. Oh.
So you just, the different paraphernalia that Vishnu has, like the chakra and the lotus and the club and things like this. I've heard that the chakra is meant to be the quality of time, eternal time. They're kind of together in that way. Have you heard that before? The chakra, the Sudarshan chakra.
Oh, chakra, yeah.
That's meant to be eternal time.
Oh yeah, sometimes it's represented as eternal time.
So which would the other ones be? What would the other paraphernalia represent? Like the lotus flower and the conch, what would they represent?
Yeah, sometimes it's compared to eternal time, that like a chakra, it's always revolving, and the different spokes in the chakra are considered to be like months and years and minutes and like that, I know it's there in the scriptures. Do you know any? It's there. I know it's Prabhupada explains that in some part of the Bhagavatam, and I've read it, but I can't remember it. I can't recall it, but it's there. I know. But if you have the folio, you don't have the folio, I suppose. You can download this incredible folio on your computer, and it's practically the whole library of books. The devotees have put together, and it's got all the whole Bhagavatams, the Caitanya Caritamrita, every book that was ever written in ISKCON is on that folio, and you can just type in one word in a search, and it'll give you all the different hits everywhere where it comes up in all those books. It's incredible. This folio, the Veda base, it's called the Veda base folio. And if you have a computer? Oh, huh? Especially if you have an Apple, you can actually, for I think it's $80 or something, you can buy it from the Apple store. It's the Bhaktivedanta Veda base. But I think you can get it on other computers as well now. Huh? Yeah. But yeah, we could look that up, and you could research that. But I know it's there because I read it. I remember, that the lotus represents something, and the chakra, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki